We take a moment also to hear from the Gospel of John, the first chapter of that Gospel, where John outlines the gift of Jesus in the world, the gift of light. Here's what John says in John 1 through 14. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision, or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on verse 5 of John's first chapter of his gospel. John writes, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." This is the hope we have. This hope will never be taken away. This is the hope in the birth of Jesus, that hope has come. Love is born. Joy emerges. And they persist. As John says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. We're ending a difficult 2020. In just a few days, the calendar will turn. And many of us give thanks for the end of this year because it's been a hard year. And we're, as experts have said, we're in a dark winter with this pandemic. And yet, as we move to a new year with new hope for a new year that's different than 2020, we also hear these timeless truths. This timeless, unquenchable hope. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. We began these readings this morning with Genesis chapter 1 through 5, where we hear when that light began. And it began with God hovering over the darkness. God hovering over the formless void, as Genesis 1 said. And out of the darkness, light came. The first thing God did was he turned the lights on. And the lights have never been turned off since. It began in darkness. Light came. And darkness was defeated. And no matter how difficult a year has been, no matter how dark it feels, maybe even today for you, rest in the assurance that this light cannot be overcome. It has not been overcome since its beginning, and nothing will extinguish it. Now, I or you, we might shade ourselves from the light. We might prevent light from shining based on our behavior or some things in our lives, or it feels like there are circumstances in our lives that our lives have gotten darkened and we can't see the light. We can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But trust The light is still there, even though we might not always perceive it. The light still shines. Think about this. If we're in the northern hemisphere, or say in North America at night, it's shining, it's sunshine around the globe, halfway around the world in India. The light still shines even though it's dark here. So even if your life or friends of yours or family of yours, your life feels dark right now, trust the light still shines, and it will shine. A new day will come. 2021 is just around the corner, and trust, my friends, that hope persists. Love is born. Joy emerges for you and for me. As John says, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. And we must not forget that today, we must not forget that Jesus descended into darkness. He descended into darkness of death at his crucifixion. It even says that he descended into hell, our creed says. And the darkness was dark, and death is a darkness, and yet the Jesus' resurrection assures us that light wins. Life wins. That in that darkness, just as his Father did in the creation story, Jesus was in the darkness just as his dad was, as he was, the Trinity was in creation, Genesis 1. Jesus dies, descends, hovers in, is dwelling in the darkness, and yet turns the light back on. And Jesus is risen from the dead. And today, my friend, rest assured in the hope that if it feels dark for you today, that God is hovering, descending, dwelling with you in that darkness, bringing light and love and hope and peace and joy. The Prince of Peace lives now and forever. Amen.